He was the golden boy of Olympus, god of the sun, music, and prophecy, worshipped for his beauty, feared for his power. But behind the light was a god who could summon plagues, destroy cities, and hunt his enemies without mercy. This is the untold story of Apollo. Give me a lyre and a bow, and I will transmit to men the infallible designs of all, are Apollo's first words. To barely out of his mother's womb, Apollo, god of light, protector of the arts, patron of soothsayers and prophets, sleeps beside his twin sister Artemis. To around them a barren and desolate landscape, the island where their mother Leto, the goddess of the night, finally found refuge after 9 days of suffering and wandering, caused by Hera. To Leto had announced to Zeus that she was pregnant. The master of the gods burst into joy, thinking that this boy would be the most valiant and beautiful of all his children. But Hera, Zeus's legitimate wife, protector of marriage, was seized with boundless anger upon learning of this new infidelity. To begin with, she summoned a monster from the depths of the earth, the serpent Python, and set it after the unfortunate Leto. Then began weeks of wandering for poor Leto, abandoned by all, going from land to land and from town to town, seeking a safe place for her twins. Leto dragged herself along, pleading, until, seized by the first pangs of pain, she reached a small island in the Aegean Sea, once her sister Asteria, who had given her refuge. In 7 days he was freed from his swaddling clothes. He was already a magnificent boy of extraordinary strength. Zeus sent him a 7-stringed lyre, a chariot drawn by 2 powerful swans, a bow and arrows specially made for him by Hephaestus. Apollo immediately decided to leave. He has set himself a goal, to be the one who will reveal their destiny to mortals, as well as the intentions of his father, the great Zeus. Apollo mounts his chariot and leaves the island, which suddenly becoming fertile and verdant, takes the name of resplendent Delos. But the swans pulling Apollo's chariot first carry him to their homeland, beyond the distant north, among the Hyperboreans. There Apollo is initiated into the mysteries of Zeus. Then he continues his journey, arriving near a splendid spring, lost in the middle of a deep forest. The guardian of the place is a nymph. Her name is Phylosia. When Apollo tells her that he intends to build a magnificent temple here, the nymph, offended, persuades him to go elsewhere. A few hours later, Apollo discovers a magnificent valley. The location seems perfect indeed, but he has barely begun to lay the foundations of his temple when a shadow silently slips behind him. Python, the terrible serpent that pursued him while he was still in his mother's womb. Python was waiting here for his revenge. The fight is incredibly violent. Apollo's triumph is complete. Gaia, the Earth Mother, who gave birth to Python, is furious. She immediately reports this offense to Zeus. Zeus orders her son to go to the Valley of Tempe to purify himself. Apollo does more. In memory of his defeated adversary, he institutes athletic and religious ceremonies, the Pythian Games. But what is a sanctuary without a priest? While meditating by the sea, Apollo suddenly sees a ship that appears to be in danger. He leaps forward, takes the form of a dolphin, and rejoins the boat. On board, he discovers that the Cretan sailors are half dead from hunger, thirst, and exhaustion. He promises to save them provided they agree to serve him faithfully. Apollo brings the ship back to shore and initiates the sailors into the divine secret. On the pediment of his temple, he has these words engraved: "Know thyself." The sailors, now priests, point out that it was in the form of a dolphin that Apollo appeared to them. Dolphin, Delphus in Greek, Apollo approves. This site will be called Delphi. Delphi will soon become the most venerated place of worship in all of Greece. People flock from the 4 corners of the world to learn the fate the gods have in store for mortals. To do so, they must consult the oracle of Delphi, the famous Pythia. Now the time of wandering is over. The time of power can begin. Apollo makes a triumphant entry onto Olympus, to the assembly of the gods. He is at the height of his glory. Alas, everyone has their dark side, even the gods. And if with his lyre Apollo enchants the abode of the immortals, with his bow he makes life impossible for men. One queen, the arrogant Niobe, will learn this the hard way. And she will not be the only one. Niobe boasted of her prodigious fertility and savaged the goddess Leto, who had only had twins, Artemis and Apollo. An unforgivable offense in Apollo's eyes. While Niobe's children were with their mother, Apollo approached them and without the slightest qualm, bent his bow and fired his arrows. 14 arrows, 14 children. One can imagine the immense grief of the unfortunate Niobe, prostrate, refusing to leave the tomb of her murdered children, weeping for them day and night, until Zeus, taken with pity, transformed her into a rock streaming with tears. A paradox for this god of great beauty. He only knows disappointed loves. The women he cares for most all inexorably escape him. The most famous of these rebels is the nymph Daphne. Eros, the young god of love, whose poor archery skills Apollo constantly mocks, decides to play a trick on the proud seducer. He pierces Apollo's heart with a golden arrow, which makes him fall in love with Daphne. Then he strikes Daphne with a lead arrow, which renders her insensitive to love. Although Apollo courts Daphne, she stubbornly refuses. To avoid having to endure the god's advances, she flees. Apollo sets off in pursuit of her. The nymph wanders deep into the forest until, betrayed by her strength, she collapses on the bank of the great river Peneus. While Apollo is only a few steps away, Daphne fervently invokes her father, the river god Peneus. In a thunder of water and foam, Peneus springs from the waves, and with the tip of his scepter touches her breast. The beautiful Daphne feels her limbs freeze, her body covered with a rough bark. She transforms into a magnificent laurel. Dejected, the sailor and Apollo then pluck a branch of this laurel and decide that, from now on, a branch of this sacred tree will decorate his lyre and adorn the heads of poets. Apollo has just fallen in love once again. Her name is Coronis. She is the daughter of the king of Thessaly. Apollo and Coronis are happy. Coronis is carrying the god's child. But the princess, still pregnant, has the misfortune of succumbing to the charms of a mere mortal, a man named Ischys. It is a raven, whom the god had charged with watching over the beauty, who warns Apollo of the betrayal. His anger is, as always, implacable. Apollo begins by killing the poor raven, who from white at first turns black. Then he kills Ischys and Coronis. At the moment when Coronis's remains, placed on the pyre, are about to be consumed by the flames, Apollo tears from her womb the still living child. This child is Asclepius. Asclepius will learn the greatest secrets of medicine and soon proves to be so skilled that he discovers for himself the incredible remedy, resurrecting the dead. Hades, the master of the underworld, is furious. What is happening is very serious. Asclepius is disrupting the order that reigns between gods and men. Zeus shares his anger. Asclepius goes too far, so without hesitation, Zeus strikes the genius physician with lightning. Apollo's despair. His own father has dared to take his son away from him. To take revenge on Zeus, Apollo then targets the Cyclopes, those one-eyed creatures who had forged the thunderbolt of the master of Olympus, and he murders them one by one. Zeus's anger. This son is definitely uncontrollable. To punish him, Zeus thinks of the worst, to throw him into Tartarus. But at the intercession of Leto, Zeus agrees to mitigate the punishment. Apollo will become the slave of a mortal for a year. Everything in the life of this god is tragedy. Everything is complexity. He will serve the king of Thessaly as a simple shepherd. Apollo also loves men. Two of his lovers will meet a tragic fate, Hyacinthus. Hyacinthus will be accidentally killed by Apollo, who, to honor him, will transform him into a hyacinth. As for Cyparissus, despairing at the death of his favorite animal, he will beg Apollo to kill him. The god will refuse and, faced with his friend's insistence, will change him into a cypress tree. Let us recognize that there is a certain genius in this god who, although unhappy, still finds the strength to give beauty to sorrow. Thus, far from the cliches that make him a solar god, a god of purity and beauty, Apollo, like all mortals, cultivates paradoxes. He is both shadow and light. Apollo is the god with many faces.
We hope you enjoyed learning with us. If you have thoughts, questions, or your own theory to share, drop a comment below. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a video on history, science, fascinating facts, and more.